Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Valley VGC video. I'm your host Jose Rocks, and today we have our April rental codes. So last month we had a special edition where I used a lot of the bottom of the barrel restricteds, and this month I'm gonna kind of give you a blend of of course, one of the best restricteds, and some of the middle class restricteds. I guess Lunala is kind of creeping up there now in being one of the best restricteds, and then I'm gonna have a couple more that I feel are like maybe a little bit more towards the bottom, but have some unique niches in the format, and just to give you like a good blend of like restrictors, right? So we're gonna go through this list. I'm gonna give you a brief breakdown of the team. Of course, the full team breakdowns will be in the videos when I showcase these teams. But if you guys want to go ahead and get the jump on these teams and get to use them, as we get into the last month of Regulation G, then these rental codes and PokePaste will be here for you. Let me know what a comment down below, guys, what you guys think about Regulation G, and what do you think the next restricted format is going to be. It should be announced in the next couple of days. So of course, once that is announced, once we get into the month of April, I'm going to be full on those on that content and posting videos about the new format. I'm still gonna showcase the battles and the gameplay with these rental codes, but I am gonna be more so focused on the new format coming out and starting to build teams, which I think is gonna be a double restricted format, but I'm not 100% sold on it. It may be like a ban list format too, where they ban like the top 10 used mons from Regulation G or something. If not, then maybe we'll get the double restricted format. I do think that this next format is going to be the Worlds format too, so it probably will be the double restricted format, since we're only about 5 months away from Worlds. But if it is like another 3-month format, then they could do a ban list format, and then like for July and August, then we'll get the double restricted format. But let me know what you guys think below, and of course, if you like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe for me, turn on those post notifications, because we are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and every subscribe that you guys leave helps the channel grow. But our first team is going to be Lunala. So you may be thinking, wow, I haven't seen a choice spec set before. So Lunala has been doing very well in regionals with a lot of different sets, and the more surprising the set is, or the more unique the set is, I think makes Lunala stand out that much more. So we saw Meteor Beam, Power Herb Lunala. We saw Leftovers Lunala with Calm Mind, and be able to set up with like Moonblast and Fairy Terror. So those are both pretty strong sets. So instead of like going with the Calm Minds or the Meteor Beam to get a +1, we went with choice specs, which starts off with a +1 at the option of not being able to switch our move. But this Lunala next to the Whimsicott is able to like sweep a lot of teams where your opponents aren't really expecting that much damage output. You have a Trick Room mode where you can go with Indeedee Lunala, set up the Trick Room and just click Expanding Force, and you also can like bring out Chi-Yu next to Lunala and deal even more damage with your choice specs moves. So expanding Force, choice specs Lunala just sweeps the field. Ice Beam, anything that it hits for super effective is going to be dealing massive amounts of damage. We already know how powerful Moongeist's Beam is, and it ignores abilities. And Dazzling Gleam with the Fairy Terror next to Chi-Yu just sweeps teams. And with Lunala having Shadow Shield, you're still pretty bulky. You can take a lot of hits with this mon, especially with the redirection from Indeedee. And then if your opponent doesn't have like fairy resistance, then you're kind of just cleaning through them, right? And then Chi-Yu comes out and just very threatening with the Covert Cloak, so you can't be faked out in case you try to go with a more so Lunala Whimsicott mode without the Indeedee. And Taunt is there also to help you shut down just set up mons or like opposing Trick Room when you want to play towards a faster mode and you don't want to let them be able to set that up. The Grass Terror is going to give you resistance into water type attacks, as well as an immunity into powder moves like Sleep Powder and Spore. And the Whimsicott is going to be Focus Sash, Ghost Terror with instead of something like Encore, I did want to run Protect, because I do see that this team can be kind of weak to fake out if you don't bring Indeedee, and I want this team to be able to play without Indeedee. So you do have the option of going for Protect just to get around fake out turn 1. And then also with Whimsicott being able to have Endeavor instead of something like Encore, which I don't want to have Encore on a team with Psychic Terrain, because I don't want to ever be in a position where I accidentally click Encore while Psychic Terrain is up, right? So Endeavor allows Whimsicott to really chip things down to 1 HP when they get you down to Sash, and that makes them want to remove the Whimsicott because now it's threatening huge amount of damage to everything that's not a ghost type, right, with Endeavor. And the Protect just makes you, really valuable into wasting your opponent's turns by trying to get rid of that Whimsicott. So that's the idea behind that. And then we have the Urshifu with Choice Scarf. We went ahead and we dropped the Aqua Jet since we do have Psychic Terrain on the team, and went with something like Iron Head. So Iron Head is going to be able to hit like opposing fairies for super effective damage. Sometimes, Flutter Mane likes to come out against this team, and you can just one-shot it with a surprise Iron Head when they might be count to survive like a Surgeon Strikes. So that's really cool that you're able to do that. Iron Head probably won't come out that much with this Urshifu set. You're mostly going to be clicking the other 3 moves, whether you need to U-turn, Surgeon Strikes, or Close Combat. But I just thought that it was a really cool tech since we won't be able to click Aqua Jet if we're going to be playing with the Indeedee. The Indeedee is pretty standard. One thing to note, we have Terra Blast, which is a normal type attack that Indeedee can get stab on, and then it turns into a water type attack if you do Terra Indeedee in like niche scenarios where you need to hit something with a super effective water type attack. Last but not least, we have the surprise pick on this team, which is going to be Frostmoth. Frostmoth with its ability Ice Scales makes it take like reduced damage from special type attacks. So this Mon is really good into like Amoonguss with the safety goggles is good into Calyrex Shadow because you can take resisted damage, reduced damage from it, and you can chip it down with Bug Buzz. And Wide Guard makes it so they can't click Astral Barrage, which makes this team super threatening if it can't get hit with ghost type attacks, right? And then also against Calyrex Ice, Calyrex Ice can't hit you for super effective damage because you resist ice and you resist the ground type attacks when it's usually carrying high horsepower. And if it has close combat, then it's not super effective, it's neutral, but you're also threatening back with Bug Buzzes once it drops its defenses, right? And Frostmoth actually underspeeds Calyrex Ice in certain scenarios, so it is really good because people are running speed investment on their Calyrex Ice. Of course, if there's no speed investment, then you just outspeed it outside of Trick Room. But if they are running a faster Calyrex Ice, then you'll underspeed it under Trick Room, right? So that's really cool that Frostmoth is able to do that. But that's going to be it for this team. There's a runner code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. All right, next we have Miraidon. So this team is going to be also a spin on how you usually run Miraidon. So the Iron Treads on this team is inspired by I think it was Dylan, right? Dylan that went up against Wolfie in the finals. Even though he didn't use his Iron Tread set, the Choice Band set kind of caught my eye because it's able to deal a lot of massive amounts of damage. And also against like opposing Miraidon teams, they're usually forced to Terra if you lead this. Then they do Terra, then you just hit them with Iron Head, right? And if they don't Terra, then you're able to hit them with a Dragon Pulse, or you're threatening like a super effective attack to where they really want to Terra, right? And then if they choose not to Terra, then High Horsepower also just does massive amounts of damage to Miraidon. So it's a really cool set, went with the Ghost Terra so that it's able to be immune to Fake Out and be really good on leads. Miraidon, this is going to be a setup set. So setup Miraidon is something that a lot of people aren't prepared for in this format, and it can absolutely win you games, especially against special attackers. So with Calm Mind, once you get like 2 Calm Minds up, which you can get them up faster when you have it next to a Rangaroo with the Instruct, Parabolic Charge is able to just deal massive amounts of damage with Electric Terror, and your only weakness is ground, right? Which that stays a weakness, but you have ways of playing around that with Sinister Redirection and also just being bulky enough to take a ground type attack, and Urshifu helps you remove opposing ground types, right? So Parabolic Charge is doing a massive amounts of damage. Iron Treads is immune to it. Sinister has Protect, so you can protect next to it. Urshifu has Protect, you can protect next to it. Entei has Protect, so you can protect next to it, and Rangaroo has Ground Terror, so that you can protect next to it, right? And we're running a different ability, because although our Rangaroo does get Telepathy, so that you don't have to run the Ground Terror, I really wanted Miraidon to actually have the defense boost from Electric Seed, and I still wanted to be able to use an item. So with Symbiosis, when you lead a Rangaroo and Miraidon leads, it loses its Electric Seed. Symbiosis is gonna actually pass the Covert Cloak over to the Miraidon so that you're immune to Fake Out, which makes it so it's easier for you to set up and they can't snarl you down to reduce your special attack. So this allows it to sweep a lot faster. The Sinister is gonna offer like really good healing on switch in. I thought that Amoonguss is less valuable on this team for healing because you can't put things to sleep due to your own electric terrain. And sometimes Amoonguss Pollen Puff is a little bit too slow to get to Miraidon, And Comfy was also another option that you could use for this team, but I thought that Comfy is a little bit more niche because I think it's a little bit more predictable, I should say, where they're going to know it's a setup Miraidon, where even though this team looks like it could be setup Miraidon, sometimes people might not automatically assume it because of the Sinister, but when they see Comfy, they automatically know it's a setup, right? But like I said, I just felt like Sinister was a better pick than Comfy because you could switch it in and get the immediate healing and not have to go for actual move. And Comfy is dependent on you having to click a button to get that healing. But like I said, Comfy's still a good alternative, but I do think that Sinister's a little bit better. It's a little bit bulkier, and also with the Water Terror and Scald, you're able to threaten like water type damage into things like a Cineroar that kind of want to sit on the field and be annoying before you're able to get set up. And it's just a good coverage on Sinister. Water Terror is a really good terror for it, so that it resists things like fire type attacks and it becomes neutral to like flying type attacks. Next is Urshifu and Entei. Pretty standard Focus Sash and Life Orb. I went with Life Orb Entei instead of Choice Band because the Choice Band is on Iron Treads, and I also wanted Protect so that I can safely Parabolic Charge next to my own Pokemon and not knock them out, right? Sometimes you'll be in a situation to where you have to Parabolic Charge next to them and knock them out, or maybe you want to knock them out to get a free switch into something else. But if you don't want to do that, then you have the option of protecting all your mons, or going for like a ground terror, or being naturally immune to it by being a ground type, right? So that Miraidon can click Parabolic Charge next to everything. Of course, Extreme Speed is there for you, and Crunch also gives you a surprise counter in the Calyrex Shadow, which can be kind of annoying because it can sit in front of you and click Astral Barrage before you can set up. So leading Entei and going for normal Terror and then Crunch just threatens Calyrex into having the Terror, and if they do Terror, then they just get hit by something else, right? A Sacred Fire is still a good option into it, but a lot of people aren't expecting Crunch on Entei, so it's a good surprise tactic for that. Last but not least, of course, we went over the Oranguru. Instruct and Trick Room are pretty standard. Foul Play, so you're able to deal damage to Calyrex Ice and a lot of the powerful physical attackers. And then Encore is when you are under Trick Room or something uses a move that is not really good into Miraidon, or it's like a setup move. That slow Encore can really punish them, right? Because whatever they click, if you know they're gonna set up and then you Encore them afterwards, then it leaves them in a really bad position. But that's gonna be it for the team. With a quick run through with this team. There's a runner code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. All right, so next we have what I would call a little bit niche. A lot of people have been finding somewhat success with Eternatus. I think it's pretty good. After practicing with it, it does seem pretty useful in a lot of different scenarios. It does pressure Miraidon where you have to make a 50-50 call whether they're gonna Terror or not. But if you do get the call right, then you'd be in a really good spot because it can one-shot Miraidon before Terror and after Terror as long as you make the call right. The Whimsicott, Poison Terror, I should say, on it so we can get the most out of Sludge Bomb. And dropping the Dragon typing can be good in a lot of scenarios, especially against things like Flutter Mane, right? And Ice type attacks. One with the Whimsicott with Encore, Tailwind, and Trick Room. This makes it so your team, even though you have Torkoal, it looks like it wants to play really fast, but if your opponent leads their Tailwind and clicks Tailwind turn 1, that means that whatever the other mon clicks, it can't one-shot Whimsicott because of the Focus Sash, and you can just protect and get Tailwind up. I mean, Trick Room up, right? And now you're in a good spot because now you're in the Trick Room, which also supports the Torkoal on this team. And also, you know, when Trick Room is up, your Entei and Chien-Pao and Eternatus moving under Trick Room when they have Tailwind up just makes it so you're able to sweep through your opponent pretty easily, and it's not a lot of counterplay they have in those 3 turns because of how much damage output these Pokemon have. Next, we have the Covert Cloak on Chien-Pao. I went with Covert Cloak with Fire Terror so that this is a really unique Chien-Pao set, but it works for this team because you're able to get around Fake Out from things like Incineroar, Iron Hands, and Rillaboom. Fire Terror makes you resist Fairy type damage as well as like Grass type attacks from Rillaboom, which like to click Wood Hammer and Grassy Glide in the Chien-Pao. And then with the moveset, we chose to drop the Ice Spinner and go with Ice Shard because I didn't want to have Sucker Punch on this team because I wanted to have Throat Chop just in case things try to Terror into what did I have that for? For the Entei, in case they try to Terror into Ghost types. People are able to play around Sucker Punch really easily with Ghost Terror and getting around Entei by not clicking like an offensive move. So I didn't want them to play around that, so I went with Throat Chop instead. But I also still really wanted the fighting coverage on this team, so we kept Sacred Sword. So that's how I ended up coming up with this set. I didn't want to run Ghost Terror since that we have the Covert Cloak. There's no need to fear Fake Out. And Fire Terror just helps the Chien-Pao stick around so we're not getting one shot since the Focus Sash is being taken up by the Whimsicott. So that was the idea behind this, and I totally forgot that, you know, Throat Chop is really good into ghost types when you want to lead Chien-Pao Entei and you got that Choice Band Normal Terror E-Speed and your opponent wants to turn into a ghost, then you can punish them with Chien-Pao. So that's the idea behind that set, and it's really strong. And Entei went with a unique set because it's Choice Band Normal Terror with the normal, you know, Second Fire, Extreme Speed, and Stumping Tantrum. But now we have Giga Impact. So Giga Impact next to Chien-Pao and Normal Terror is going to allow you to one-shot pretty much everything in the format that doesn't resist normal type attacks or is immune to it next to Chien-Pao. And opponents are not really expecting to get just knocked out. They may expect to like stomach an E-Speed and then respond back with another attack. But just getting one shot when you expect your mon to be able to set up or survive an attack from Entei is just super threatening, and that's what really makes it a really cool set. Next we have Fluttermane, pretty standard. I chose to drop the taunt this time to make Fluttermane just a little bit more offensive, being able to also threaten ghost types with Shadow Ball and threaten Calyrex Shadow with Shadow Ball, which a lot of them are expecting you to not run Shadow Ball because Fluttermane gets such a really unique tool set. And then of course Icy Wind, so that if you do want to play next to Chien-Pao and Eternatus, if your opponent doesn't have Tailwind, but you necessarily you don't need Tailwind, but you don't want to set up Trick Room, then Icy Wind is that perfect tier to where you're able to use it and then allow Chien-Pao, Entei, and Eternatus to outspeed everything. And then of course we have the standard Torkoal set. One thing to note is that we're running Weather Ball over Heat Wave just so we can play around Wide Guard and still threaten a lot of damage with a single target fire type move. But that's going to be it for a breakdown with this team. There's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. Let's get into the next one. Alright, so our next team, we have another Kyogre team. So I did already make a Kyogre team in this format in the first month of Regulation G, but that was a Choice Specs variant. But now I want to make a Choice Scarf variant, which I saw some of the struggles that I had with that other Kyogre team. Not necessarily struggles, but I saw that even on Tailwind, things like Fluttermane with Booster Energy was able to outspeed my Choice Specs Kyogre and still be able to threaten it with like Icy Wind and then a double up for something else. But now with this Kyogre with Choice Scarf next to the Tornadus, we able to set up Tailwind, and now we outspeed that Booster Energy Fluttermane, and we can just one shot it with a Water Terror Water Spout. And you can also, once you get Tailwind up and you click Water Spout, the next turn you can just switch in your Chi-Yu, and now that boost that we used to get from the Choice Specs, now we're getting it from being next to Chi-Yu, and you're still able to one shot a lot of things. And also when your opponent doesn't have proper speed control, you can just switch in Chi-Yu or even lead Chi-Yu Kyogre, and you don't have to click a fire move with Chi-Yu. That's why we have Will-O-Wisp and Dark Pulse. You can just click Dark Pulse or Will-O-Wisp, and then now you're threatening a lot of damage. So we went with the Dark Pulse with Life Orb with Chi-Yu because I just wanted to be able to threaten a lot of damage and also be able to play inside of rain and not necessarily have to rely on Heat Wave, right? Heat Wave feels really good when you're on a Sun team or a team that doesn't have rain. But on this team, we only have Flamethrower just because Flamethrower is still good on Chi-Yu in case you're playing outside of rain or you're playing against a Sun team. But mostly when you do have the rain up, you want to just click that Dark Pulse with Life Orb and you're able to deal a lot of damage. And the Grass Terror is just to help you get around, you know, Spore and opposing water types. Will-O-Wisp is really good into a lot of the physical attackers in the format, like Calyrex Ice, things like Groudon, things like Koraidon before it Terras, things like Zacian. Being able to burn those just allows, you know, a lot of your other monsters to thrive, especially Iron Hands and Friggraph if you're playing towards that Trick Room mode. Iron Hands and Friggraph do, you know, make up the Trick Room core of this team. You really use that to stop Trick Room. There is a couple scenarios to where you can play Trick Room with Chi-Yu or Urshifu in the Trick Room with the Friggraph Iron Hands, and then once Trick Room ends, when your opponent doesn't have proper speed control, you bring in Kyogre in the end game, and then you just sweep with the Choice Scarf. So that's another mode that I like to play with this team. With the Friggraph, we went with the Water Terror so that you resist the the Glacial Lance from Calyrex Ice, because that's something that you need to be prepared for. And the Iron Hands has Poison Terror so that we're able to resist the Fairy type attacks, because Whimsicott and Fluttermane are able, and also Miraidon with Fairy Terror, Dazzling Gleam are able to deal massive amounts of damage to Iron Hands even though you have an Assault Vest, is because Fairy coverage is so good in this format. So with the Poison Terror, you're able to resist that and deal a lot of damage back to them, whether it's with Low Kick or Wild Charge. Drain Punch allows Iron Hands to heal back up and have a good matchup into Calyrex Ice, which that's why we dropped the Heavy Slam, because I have Urshifu, I have Wild Charge, and I have a lot of coverage, so Flutter Mane is not really a huge deal. So I didn't feel like I really needed to have Heavy Slam on this set, and Drain Punch healing just felt a lot better to me. Next we have the Urshifu, which is also Grass Terror. Just a defensive terror to help you get around things like Amoonguss. We have the damage boost from the rain, either whether it's from Kyogre or whether it's from Eternatus. Focus Sash is a really good item on Urshifu, which allows you to take a major hit and survive on 1 HP, which is very threatening next to a Kyogre, which makes your opponent have to choose which one he wants to attack. You can fake out the Kyogre, but you're going to take a Surge Strikes in the rain from Urshifu. You fake out Urshifu, you take a Water Spout from Kyogre. So your opponent has to choose, and it's very hard to one-shot either one of these mons without doubling into them. So it's a really threatening lead. And the Eternatus also having Taunt and Rain Dance just allows you to play a better matchup into things like Sun and things like Amoonguss with Spore. And also the Taunt allows you to taunt things like Smeargle as well. And Smeargle is becoming really common in the format, so you're really going to want to carry that taunt on most of your teams. But that's going to be it for breakdown of this team. There's a runner code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. Let's get into the final team. Woo! Okay, we made it to the final team. So I've said a mouthful so far. So this is going to be another one of our special teams. This team honestly could have been in last week's edition of the special edition, but I only have 5 slots, right? So I couldn't include it, and I really wanted to include those other teams last week. And I felt since we already included Palkia Origin, I felt like I can save this one for this month, right? But I did have this team cooking last month, and I could have easily swapped it out for the Palkia team. But now we got the Dialga team. So this Dialga is a really, really fun team. It's a really consistent, hard Trick Room team. It doesn't necessarily need Trick Room, but it really thrives on the Trick Room, and it's really good against opposing hard Trick Room teams like Calyrex Ice teams, because Dialga with the Water Terror is very hard for Calyrex to deal good damage into it, and having the Smeargle, which is not running Moody, it's running on tempo because we want to run a bulky or slow Smeargle. So under Trick Room, Smeargle is able to decorate a Dialga before it can attack and give it a +2, +4, +6 on its Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon, and Earth Power. And then you just one-shot everything, especially if you hit something for super effective damage, it's just going down. And with the Water Terror, you get rid of your super effective attacks, and you have a lot of resistances, as well as things can't really hit you for super good damage, and you're able to just deal damage back to them. If Dialga's moving first and not getting one shot back, it becomes very threatening, right? And then also, of course, you have Smeargle next to it, putting things to sleep. Redirecting attacks away with Follow Me just makes this lead very good, because you can just fake out Trick Room or Follow Me Trick Room, and it's very hard to stop this duo from getting set up. Another thing I like is that with Telepathy, you're able to allow Ursaluna to Earthquake next to Dialga. So usually your opponents are going to want to knock out Smeargle before Dialga once Trick Room goes up. Once Smeargle goes down, then Ursaluna comes in, and you're able to click Earthquake next to Dialga and still hit your opponents. And clicking Earthquake next to Dialga plus like Flash Cannon and Dragon Pulse is just very hard for your opponent to have good switch hands, right? So it's a fairly standard set. It's also a Water Terror on Ursaluna, because Water Terror is just like the best defensive terror into things like Calyrex Ice, which can be pretty threatening to this team because it's a Trick Room mon. So we want to make sure that we're able to win those Trick Room matchups. So that's why you see me going with Water Terror twice on this team, because for both of them, I just really couldn't find a better terror. And any other terror outside of Steel makes Ursaluna take neutral damage from Glacial Lance, and that's something that we really did not want. And Steel Terror makes us take super effective damage from the high horsepower, which is also something that we didn't want. So that's why we went with the Water Terror. It's the only terror that really makes sense for what we want to do with this team. Next, we have a unique Incineroar set. So this is going to be an offensive Incineroar with Rocky Helmet with a lot of physical defense investment, so that you're able to soak up a lot of Surging Strikes or hitting physical moves from your opponent and chip them back down with the Rocky Helmet. The Bug Terror just gives you Incineroar is weak to ground, and it's also weak to fighting. So it gives you a resistance to both of those attacks, which are fairly common in this format. And also being able to resist those, and then with the Rocky Helmet, it just puts Incineroar in a good spot. And we wanted some offense so that you can click Flare Blitz next to it, next to Dialga, to just threaten, different Pokemon that may give Dialga some trouble. And knockoff is always very threatening to remove things like Assault Vest, just allowing things on your team to sweep a little bit better. You can also decorate your Incineroar and just make it pretty threatening on offense, and it still offers that support with Parting Shot and Fake Out. Next, we have Cresselia. Cresselia is going to be the Amoonguss answer to this team. So if you look at this team, the real only answer that we have to Amoonguss is going to be the Cresselia and Ursaluna being burnt so that it can't be put to sleep. So with Cresselia, Safety Goggles makes it so Amoonguss can't put Cresselia to sleep. And with Lunar Blessing, Cresselia is able to put to wake everything up that's been put to sleep, which is really solid. We went with Ice Beam because ice coverage felt good on this team for me. It's able to one-shot Landers because we have a little bit of special investment on Cresselia, which they might not be expecting Cresselia to just one-shot Landers, which Landers can be pretty threatening to Dialga, and it just allows you to threaten it with that. I did think about running Ally Switch, but I'm a proponent of people not using Ally Switch because it's so cheesy in my opinion. So if I'm against someone of people not using Ally Switch, then I really didn't want to use it myself, right? I don't want to be a hypocrite, right? And using Ally Switch with Smeargle, it's way too cheesy. And like I said, I like to make my teams where they're able to be played in best of 1 and best of 3. So you see, like, having this set is not too surprising, but your opponent still has to deal with it, right? And it's not something that's gonna like super like blow like win you games just because you have a surprise on it. But it's surprising enough so that it does leave room for tricks in best of 1, but also consistency in best of 3. So that's the way I like to build my teams. But that's why you see something like Protect on Cresselia instead of something like Ally Switch. Now, Protect on Cresselia can still be pretty surprising in best of 1 because people see Cresselia if you lead it with something like Ursaluna. They think that Ursaluna is going to protect so they can double into Cresselia to try to get a KO, and you can just protect when they waste a double up and then just get some damage off of Ursaluna and then set up your Trick Room next turn and protect Ursaluna. So it's a really cool strategy. Having Protect just allows for a lot of different lines that people aren't usually expecting with Cresselia, and also, you know, being Dark Terror allows you to resist those ghost type attacks and also give you an immunity to like side spam, opposing side spam. And last but not least, we have Urshifu. So it's going to be a bulkier, slow Urshifu with Life Orb. I didn't want to run Choice Band because I did want to have the option of switching my moves. And since we're not running Psychic Terrain on this team, Life Orb Sucker Punch is really strong inside of Trick Room and outside of Trick Room against slower and faster targets. And the Life Orb just allows Urshifu to deal a lot of damage with Wicked Blow in close combat. So we went with Poison Terror, so we didn't have something like an offensive Terror because we do have the damage boost with Life Orb. And the Poison Terror allows you to survive Fairy type damage and allows Urshifu to like deal a lot of damage back. And this Urshifu, while it's not Choice Band, so it's not going to be picking up 1 KOs all the time, it's still doing massive amounts of damage and one-shotting things that are under 50% pretty easily, and also allowing other things like Dialga and Ursaluna to pick up KOs once it's chipped things down pretty well. So that's kind of the idea behind it, and it's meant to be able to play under Trick Room, so you're putting on pressure so your opponent can't just protect through Trick Room when they have a lot of faster mons like Chimpows, Zamazentas, Zacians, Calyrex Shadows, Chiyus, opposing Urshifus of the world, Landorus. When they're playing with those really fast teams, this Urshifu can become really threatening since we don't have any speed investment, but it's not minimum speed, but it does have a lot of HP and defense investment. So that's the idea behind this Urshifu, and it fits this team really well. But if you guys want to give this unique Dialga team a try, there's a rental code up at the top right, as well as a PokePaste down in the description below. And let me know in the comment what you guys think about this team. I put a lot of thought and effort into this team specifically because I really wanted it to be good, and I really wanted it to feel unique, and also I wanted it to be fun for other people to play with. So if you guys think it looks interesting to give it a try, then you have the rental code and the PokePaste in the description below so that you can. But that's going to be it for this video. This is all 5 of the rental teams for April. I hope you guys enjoy these teams and, you know, get a lot of wins on the ladder. And come back to the video and let me know how you guys did. If you went like, you know, 9-1, 8-2, however you did when you play your first 10 games with these teams. And let me know how you did. I'm always curious to hear how you guys are doing with these teams and seeing if you are able to win with them. If there's any changes that you guys feel like should be made to these teams that you would recommend, it's always fun to leave those comments down low. I'm very interactive with them because I respond to all the comments. So if you guys want to discuss some of those things, then feel free to leave them below. But that's going to be it for this video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Stay tuned. More videos soon. Deuces.